Alright, today I'm going to work on this Winslow Homer painting study, and just going to start by drawing in with just some charcoal. You know, the thing about drawing with charcoal, maybe a tiny higher there, is that if you're really looking to get confident in drawing, it's the way to go. I mean, when you begin to look at the work of the masters, or depends on how far back you want to go in the search of master, but you begin to look at a lot of artists that were getting very, very loose with their style, and not bound to lines. Sometimes it's nice to do. I began my kind of career there, and now I've kind of moved away from it, but it's still there. I can still always go back and forth, and I'll if I want to work something out, of course I'll do it. But I think something like that is good enough for what I'm looking to achieve in terms of drawing. But if you did want to take another 5 minutes, let's just get a couple more marks in here. Look for the big passage, the big marks there. You see that shape in the middle there? It kind of breaks it up. To me, that is that's a nice shape, right? Then there's this shape, right? But the beautiful thing about trying to do this and fit it all together is that you think of the whole. It probably comes over a little bit more in this. And as monochromatic as this seems, which I think it kind of is, it also has a bunch of little variety in here. And I think, look at that, even at the top. Maybe this comes down a touch. Like I find this almost like what we were doing at Water Street in a short amount of time. Now I'm going to guess at a couple colors to maybe get what I think. And I'm going to put this out. I don't quite know if that's going to hit the spot, but I think it is. I'm just going to put a couple more colors out. I got cobalt out. Let's put a little bit of ultramarine. I don't know. You begin looking and then you begin kind of guessing what would Homer have on there. The thing I do want to try on this little study, because I think I'm going to go for subtlety. It's just putting out some Kremnitz white, just a lot of it. And the beautiful thing about when you study Winslow Homer's work, which I encourage everyone to go see in person, is that, there's a good amount of paint down. He's not shy about mark making. And I encourage you all to go look at the ones that are bold, if that's where you're choosing you really want to go, and then begin to study them, really get in there and take a look at what it is they're doing. There you go. And that, to me, I'm going to get just some variations of this cobalt teal, ivory black, and he has so many good quotes about a color or a painting being almost kind of monochromatic, and letting the value really be what is carrying the painting. Now, I feel like there's the ability to play with marks, even in a little study like this, to just get the kind of gist of maybe what he was doing. If you want to nuance it a little bit more, maybe you do. That's up to you. But always opportunity to explore so much. Maybe you want to grab a medium. When I get into doing these things, I almost feel like there's a lot of kind of dual purpose in everything. And one of the purposes of something like this would be exploration of Homer, then also exploration of texture, and then also exploration of some of the new things maybe that have been added to my palette. So let's just get this in here. feels a little on the warm side. Let's pull it cool. Now the interesting thing about flake white is the name of it is also silver white. Pretty fascinating, right? Grab a little blue. You know, I think he's gonna probably harmonize it by pulling the colors together. Pull it in a little bit more. Don't fall in love with it. Let it move if it needs to. Go. And it definitely has, seems like a hint. Now that is all going to feel wrong. So I'm going to grab a touch. Feels like there's just caked on pieces of white. I'm going to pull that in through. Still keeping in mind just the big, broad shapes of this as I paint it. All right. Hard not to get carried away in a painting like this. It was really about subtlety, you know. But do your best. I mean, there's not a wrong way to do these, you know. I mean, there's just the way that you do it. I think, you know, John DeMartin, when he talks about drawing, and he quotes his teacher all the time, and he says, there's no right or wrong way to draw. There's your way, you know. And he's basically just saying that, I don't know, don't you get held back by rules and stuff like that, you know. Keep great expression at the top of what you're looking to do, and I think you'll be fine. All right, let's get a little bit more. There just seemed to be like a purple in there. I think. Yeah, because it'll feel monochromatic if I stay in that one little range. I just pull in the purple. Again, you know, the interesting thing about this, and I say it a lot, is that it's possible that I could be bringing something to it that's not there. And if I'm open to the data, it's quite possible that I may learn something even in whatever it is I'm doing incorrectly, you know. And that's why it's like nothing is really incorrect in that sense. It's leading you to your next piece of thing that you're always cataloging in your head. And, you know, go see good art. I can't tell you what good art is. I mean, I can tell you ones I'm inspired by, but that doesn't mean that that's what you should be inspired by. Sometimes I think people want that, but really the thing with all this is that you have to be active in thought. All right, I mean, you can even like average this if you wanted to, and you know, I'm gonna average it as thinly with purple, knowing that that's probably not going to be correct. I'm going to tip it towards the turquoise. Right? Interesting. You know, then you could, of course, question, would he have had these colors on his palette? I don't know. But then, as much as I sometimes say, go find the colors he had, you're also more than welcome to break down your palette with this painting. You know? And I think there's also equal, you know, that breaking it down with his color scheme may introduce a new color into your palette. But if you break it down with your palette, you'll be beginning to kind of think, maybe there's, like, could I pull into something that I do? Seems a little bit too warm. Pull it towards the center. Sometimes that's what we do. You can get the average of these things. Imagine, like, if you were gonna kind of do a dry run and you were in theater or something like that. It's kind of the way I think of this. It's just the beginning of trying out some of the data before you really kind of jump in and refine it. But you got to run through it. Maybe, in football, when we used to play, we never went full in practice. We always kind of just ran through building the muscle memory of the plays and stuff like that. And, I think that's a good kind of way to think about it. Let's push that hole on the cool side. A little bit of a contrast there. If you want to push it a tiny bit cooler, you can grab just a touch of ultra. Interesting contrast there as you begin to study this. Yeah, and the beautiful thing about silver white is that you have to kind of cake it on because it almost falls on the brush. It almost doesn't do anything. It just gets gobbled up. It's so totally different. You look at that versus titanium. All right, there's a little key over there. Notice I found it off of this. So I shape. All right. Again, look at how much Kremnitz white I've used. It's almost silly how much, in a wonderful way, how much paint you use when you're using it. All right. I really wonder if he would have used something like a cobalt teal. I don't know. Have to do research. I guess that's kind of a little dorky. Not that you have to do it, but yeah, a little too high contrast. Let's bring it down. There's a key of. Look at the marks. That's the thing. There's like a dancing of the brush sometimes you can only get with confidence or a pass. It's something that I've been studying the illustrators that were doing it for a long time. Dean Cornwell, Harvey Dunn, the ones I think that just have this beautiful marks to their work. And it's something I just, back of my mind someday, I feel I'll be able to do it. Not there yet. Very, very difficult because it's such like low chroma. Go back here. The color. Everything is tiny little tight range. Yeah, very similar to the Wyeth, you know, and this little range of values. Scrub it in. All right. Let's see about this. Can you get a green? That's where I'd say probably did use some. I was thinking like maybe Viridian was like one of the colors, and it's like now that you mix it up, feels like probably kind of dancing through this. Look at that. That was a cobalt teal, and this is the Viridian. You know, and the beautiful thing about this just tells me that you can get very similar, especially if you're in a mid-chromatic palette, those two colors. Bring it over. Like the whole thing is not high chroma. The painting. Notice I had to kind of find that. Wasn't like first shot. I think most think I get it first shot or something, and I absolutely do not. I just don't give up at trying to get it. And I know that if it sucks, I'll just let it go. Do another one. And then sometimes it makes you even more focused coming back. If the first one sucked, come back the next time and you're just like focused and like I'm gonna get it this time. All right. Dab the brush in there. Grab a little. Work it in a little bit. Get it whiter. Brush gonna dance on the surface. Yeah. Anything coming out of this that, you know, makes you think different? To me, there's definitely like maybe ideas of how to do waves, especially night waves. I mean, this is, I can only imagine difficulty very, very high of being able to do it, as are most old master paintings. All right, let's bring this a little touch. Cool that down. Looks like I'm kind of broadening out as I go a little bit. back in. Oh, back and forth there. Then over here, just nice and dark. Right there. But look how it seems like a contrast, but is it? How contrasty is it, you know? Kind of a contrast. Every time I go to the Met, I see this painting. It makes me very, very happy. Very, very moody painting. Let the brush do a little work for the marks, even though it's still trying to be broad. Right, tie it to this. Maybe the wet into wet gives you it definitely does, a different mark. And because you're working quickly in this way, it's very much in alla prima, done in one shot. A little towards green. Surf at the bottom. Cake it on. You know, you see this in some paintings, just like a caked on. See that? And this to me looks like a color you can only get in this kind of way of application. It's like a wet into wet goopiness. And it gives you the beautiful, see that, the dragging? You can only try to emulate that, I don't even know, with a medium. And a dabbing of the brush. Try not to grab too much of anything. I want to muddy it. Yeah. Look at the beauty down here. Alright, let's bring this over. Little umbers. Maybe that's too red. Bring this up. I do think there's some red in here. See that how it just balances color-wise? All that cool color. And then he's popping it. I think a lot of artists are going off of like their own sketches and stuff. You know, the mimetic kind of idea. I think it's very, very recent that it's so paint from life kind of thing. I think it's always been there, of course, as a way to study. But there's definitely a lot of talk in old master manuals about painting from memory and developing that as a skill. I think it affords you to kind of make decisions that are painting wise, a little different than you would if you are just copying. I don't know. It's a whole different new set of things these days that artists are after, and I think technology has kind of made some people lazy, very lazy, in the pursuit of even what great is. They everything's kind of catered to us now, and I think it takes a lot to get to a museum and study. And I went to a museum recently with one of my old teachers. He had me up to do a demo at his school, and we went in and we were talking about just doing the master copy and how it was such a part of training and how he did it, and how when he used to go to the same museum that I did, kind of years apart, the training was still kind of happening, or people were just sketching, and we were talking about ways we used to have to kind of duck because they didn't want you to use a pen. I used to draw with a pen all the time, and you had to pretend it was a pencil, that kind of stuff. The shape right there, and just so fascinating that I don't know, somewhere along the line, I don't know if it's just in America or what, but somewhere they're just not doing master copies anymore. The Met, you have to go through a super long process to do it, which is amazing to be able to do it. But the gallery, the National Gallery in DC, which you'd think like, it's free to go, you would think that they would all be up on the educational side of it. They had, I don't know if they still do, easels in every gallery, and the reason for that was to do master copies. And sadly, you just don't see anyone doing it anymore. I think because a lot of stuff is just not taught. Like the lineage of studying old master work is what the master and apprentice kind of thing, that's where you started. You always look back, and I don't know if it's just the new generation of kids that are just not interested in looking back anymore, studying the things that have come before us. I don't really know. So fascinating that, but I wish more people would be doing master copies. I highly recommend doing one. I've gone to small museums and done them. No one asked me to do it. I didn't do it for a class. I did it for me because the pursuit has always been kind of endless for me. And I highly recommend everyone go and try to do one. And who cares what it looks like? Stand before it, and you'll see that working from an iPad is so much easier to do than to stand before it and try to make some decisions. And a lot of the time, they don't give you a lot of time to do it. So there's also that. There's nothing like standing before something. Look at this. He's kind of outlining them to separate. This is lighter than the background. But a lot of the time they don't give you a lot of time to do it. And they're cautious because they don't want to have you do a copy. It's not... They make you do it another size. Usually, I think 10 to 15% at least bigger or smaller. Probably so you can't sell it if you're really good on the secondary market. But highly recommend you do one. See what you think. Maybe you won't like it. I don't know. Give it a shot. Again, this is so much easier to do in the comfort of our home, which I think has a ton of value, by the way, to do one of these in your, if you can't make it to a museum, Not trying to make anyone feel bad. Um, just do what you can. All right, let's get some of the gray. Come over here a little bit. I think maybe even blue. Like a storm approaching. Soften it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of good enough. Add a touch. Ooh, missed a spot. So sometimes I always find that when I do it on gray, if it's almost the same value, I can sometimes not see it, like here, that there's a kind of a gap between the ground. There's also, like, I think a warm ground kind of shining through over here. Fascinating. It really kind of comes through to melt into the intertwining of the warm and the cool throughout the whole thing. Oh, red. And look at the pops of color he's gotten here. Right? Just like little gems. Of course, there's a little more on the nuanced side, but and then, go as far as you want. Or as I say, don't put too much detail in. Like, you own it at the end, and you put as much or as little detail as you want. Of course, there's a pro and a con to both sides of that, depending on what your goal is when studying. But not everybody's after the same goals. You have to begin to kind of think of what yours are. So, alright, that's almost a good place to stop, I think. I'll just do a couple more. The very wet into wet technique with lead white, just fabulous color. Alright, I'll leave that. I think that's about good. Just sneak a tiny bit more up here. The beautiful thing about lead white, if you end up ever trying it or moving towards it, is that it dries fast and to a very strong paint film, and it's kind of like no other color. And how fast, like if you want to do passages over multiple days, you go with lead white. It's gonna be your go-to, just because it's dried so fast. All right. Now let's just bring down some of the contrast in here. just so it's more of a passage. All right, I think that's a pretty good study of it. Of course, I could keep going all day, but I'm gonna just leave it.